Over to you, Scott.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Northern California SBDC, Small Business Development Center's town hall meeting that we do 2 days a week, every Monday, Wednesday. Hopefully everyone had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. So we missed you on Monday, but we are here today. We have our disaster relief loan updates, and we have CASEFORCE, the attorney coalition, to talk about answer some attorney questions. And this is brought to you by NorCal SBDC, the Finance Center. This is our 58th session, and today is September 9th, and we're all in this together. So in Northern California SBDC, we cover the most 36 northern counties in the state. We go from the Oregon border down the coast. We cover all 9 counties of the Bay Area. We go as far as southeast as Stockton and back up to the Nevada, the Oregon border. We're funded by SBA. This is our 40th year of existence. SBA Small Business Administration, that's our federal funding. And we have state funding in the state of California from the Governor's Office of Economic Development, which is called GoBiz. Because of this funding, we come to business owners at no cost. So whether you're starting or growing or surviving COVID, we come to you at no cost as an advisor, therapist, and advocate, like whatever you need to help you survive your business during this rough time. We're here for you at no cost. So we offer the one-on-one advising, workshops, whichever you need, educational webinars, all that good stuff. For the Finance Center, before COVID, we specialized primarily in helping businesses get startup capital, growth capital, buying buildings, whatnot. During COVID, we've had to become pure experts on the disaster funding that exists, whether it's the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, now the fire loans, all the disaster loans that exist within small business financing. My name is Scott Rogowski. I'm the director of the Finance Center. Sunita Maharaj is the associate director. She's not on the call today, but we do have Michael Ballstadt. He's one of our regional advisors. He's here to help out with the attorneys and the lawyers that we have on. Well, we have one on, but yeah. So we'll get to that shortly. So our agenda is we have a quick disclaimer. We'll go over the EIDL and PPP parameters. Just wanted to briefly highlight that there is other money available outside of PPP and EIDL if you were not able to get that or did not get as much as you wanted or thought you were going to get. We'll go over just a quick slide about the PPP required documents. There hasn't been any updates recently on PPP or EIDL. We do have SBA on the call. We have Janelle Green. She's gonna, from the Sacramento District Office, she's gonna speak briefly in probably about 10 minutes or so on their updates, and then we'll go for upcoming webinars, and then we'll go into CASEFORCE. All right, so things are changing all the time. This information was correct when we put it together, but things are changing all the time. You know, we used to say this disclaimer, we've been saying it from the beginning because things were changing daily. Thank goodness it's not at that accelerated pace anymore. Things have not really changed over the last month or two. EIDL is open for everyone. EIDL is open for everyone, including 501c3s, C4s, and C6s. Those of you that run nonprofit organizations should know which one you are. So only C4s, C3s, and C6s. The EIDL advance is closed. You can no longer get an EIDL advance. Please do not hesitate to apply for the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Applications are still open for EIDL. You can still apply for EIDL. Please do not hesitate. Based on what you hear from your CPA, your bookkeeper, or whomever, whether it's a consultant, please do not hesitate to apply. We don't know if you're going to get approved until you apply. PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, that closed Sunday, August 8th. We have not heard anything new about them relaunching a new PPP. So what we have is what we have, or what you were able to get is what you're able to get. And now we're working together to help you with forgiveness. So the quick parameters side by side, you know, we go over this every time, so I'm sure you all know this. You could probably teach it better than we can. But on EIDL, it's 2.75% for any 501c3, C4, or C6. and 3.75% for for-profits, which is probably most people on the call. 1% for PPP, 30-year term for EIDL, 2 or 5 years for PPP, depending on what you've negotiated with your bank. But everyone qualifies for the 5-year, regardless of when you got funding for PPP. You just need to go back to your bank and negotiate it if that's the case. You have 11 months deferral on the EIDL. Interest does accrue during the time. PPP, you have 10 months after your covered period. So if that was 8 weeks or 24 weeks, depending on what you chose, you have 10 months after that covered period ends to pay your first payment. Interest will accrue. On the forgivability of PPP, that interest that accrues is also potentially forgivable. Collateral for EIDL is not needed unless your loan is over $25,000, and personal guarantee is not needed unless it's over $200,000. There's no collateral or personal guarantee required for PPP. The EIDL is not forgivable. The EIDL is not forgivable, but it is a great loan at a great rate for a long term. The PPP could be potentially forgivable up to 100%. The money that you could spend for EIDL, you could spend on all operating costs, expenses, cost of goods, interest, debt payments. You could not spend it on expansion, paying off amounts of loans fully. You could pay monthly payments, but not fully, and any tax liens. The PPP, if you spend 60% or more on payroll costs, including state taxes, and 40% or less on utilities, mortgage, interest, monthly payments, then it could be potentially 100% forgiven. You're not allowed to spend it on workman's comp, federal taxes, and employee portion of benefits. If you do spend the PPP on anything that's not part of what you see here, rent, utilities, payroll, or interest mortgage payments, then it will not be forgiven. All right, so other money available. We've gone over this before, but just wanted to bring it to your attention today again to let you know that if you didn't get what you wanted from PPP or EIDL, you didn't get enough, or you didn't get it at all, or you're too afraid to apply, or something happened, there is money out there with state guarantee money that we can help you get, anywhere from $5,000 to $1 million. This is all over Northern California. It's actually all over the state, but for our areas that we cover. There's also an EDA direct loan fund with a company called California Capital in Sacramento that we work with closely that can help you get money between $5,000 and $150,000, and only these 5 selected counties: Sacramento, El Dorado, Placer, Yolo, and Nevada. So if you're interested in one of those and you want some quick money, 3-4 weeks money, don't have to go to a bank, we're here for you. We can help you with that. There's also startup capital if any of you are starting. There's expansion capital if any of you are expanding right now, and we can also help you get that. Mike Ballstad is taking the lead for our region to help kind of talk about the new California State Direct Loan Fund. It has a better name than that, but that's kind of like what it is. And that launches, I think, at the end of this month. But there's more information coming about that later as we move forward in the weeks of September. Mike's going to jump on a call later this afternoon to find out more about that. All right, so required documents for PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. For those of you that are looking for forgiveness, this is where you go get the application, and then the instructions to fill that out is right here. For those of you that have great relationships with your banks, I'm sure you're already talking to them about this. For those of you that don't, if you're curious, you could please reach out to us. We can help you. You can go to these websites and check it out. All right, so I just put this in here because we get a lot of questions around what application you could fill out. And this is for sole proprietors, independent contractors, or self-employed individuals with no employees. They should complete the EASY form, which is 3508 EASY form. And just some other information here about the 10 months. All right, so yes, it was a very quick update. Again, like I mentioned, there's not a lot of changes or a lot of new enhancements. But we do have Janelle Green. She's the Economic Development Specialist at the Sacramento SBA District Office. She's going to talk about some things that are going on with SBA.
Thanks, Scott. I just have 3 webinar updates to share for the week. So today At 1 p.m., we're going to have a joint webinar with California Capital's Women's Business Center here in Sacramento. They're going to discuss how to pivot your business. We'll all provide overviews of our SBA programs. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., the SBA is hosting its ongoing weekly webinar that goes into a deeper dive of SBA programs, including standard loan programs and federal contracting. And then tomorrow at 1 p.m., I will be in a joint webinar with the Grado Chico Area SCORE chapter, and they're going to cover how to prepare a simple business plan. And I'll again do an overview. If you're interested in those webinars or others, as we're continually updating our schedule, please go to our district office website calendar. You can go there by visiting sba.gov/ca/Sacramento, and there are just the dates, the details, and you can register there directly. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Scott. Thank you for the opportunity to share these updates.
Excuse me. You're very welcome. Thank you very much, Janelle, for doing that. And what's on the screen here, for those of you that are looking on the screen, we already went over when they launched the national disaster. SBA was paying the payments that expires this month, and then also if you're in application status with any type of bank, whether it be just getting some working capital or buying a building, if you get that done by September 27th, they will pay the payment for the first 6 months. So we're running out of time. Obviously, today's the 9th. 27th is less than 20 days away. So if you're one of those people, you know you are. If you're not, then it's too late to apply and get taken care of that. For disaster, SBA EIDL Economic Injury Disaster Loan, here's the number: 800-659-2955. Excuse me. If you want to email them, you can email them here at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. If you applied and you were declined and you want to do a reconsideration, you can email them at pdcrecons@sba.gov. And if you have questions around servicing, you can also email them at El Paso dlsc@sba.gov, or you can call them. So quick update there. So we have these webinars every Monday, Wednesday, and going forward, this is what we have on the docket as we move forward for the rest of the month. September, we're already in September. It's going by quick. So next Monday, we're going to talk about fire and COVID updates. It'll be a regular, I know Alan talked about a fire webinar, which is coming up next. We have one tomorrow. But Monday, we'll do a fire COVID updates. Next Wednesday, the 16th, we'll do the same as we're doing today with regular updates, CASEFORCE. The 21st, more fire and COVID updates. We actually have specific trainings on the 21st and the 28th. I think on the 21st, we're doing HR law, which we've got a lot of people that are interested in that. So that's the 21st. 28th, we're doing credit repair, in addition to other stuff that we're doing. All right. So, Alan, do you want to talk about the fires?
Sure. Large portions of Northern California are supported by the recent SBA and federal disaster declarations. So tomorrow we've got a webinar that we're running in this same slot. Primarily our colleagues from the Office of the SBA. We have someone from the Office of Disaster Support who is going to be talking about the status of those declarations, what type of disaster loans you can get, and economic injury loans are a little bit different to the EIDLs that we know from the COVID support and the other support they have available. So they're going to be giving a short presentation on that. Also, this is not the first time that our region has been impacted by fires by any means. So we'll have one or two of our advisors who've helped clients through the process before will be available to tell you some of the things that they've learned in doing that and can help, and the things that can make your life as easy as possible if you need to go through that process if you've been impacted by this. So if you go to SBDC.events fire support panel, you can sign up. I'll throw the response for that in the chat. And that's 10:30 to 11:30 tomorrow. It will not be this event. So if you have a registration for this one, you will need to register separately for tomorrow's event. All right. And then next slide is just the other stuff that we've got going. So you can get access to all of these on SBDC events /network calendar. That gives you access to not only these ones which are done at the regional level by the regional program and the restaurant program, but also if you go on that calendar, you can also see all the different things that are being done by all the centers in our network. Typically on any given week, we've got 15 to 20 events going across different topics around the network. So I'd really, if there's anything you're interested in, have a look on there, because these are all webinars, anyone can attend any of them. But some specific stuff we're doing. So tomorrow we've got a food truck program on how you can start a food truck. We've got a few things around e-commerce. So there's an SEO program, how to get search engine optimization working up and well. Any of you came to our how to use social media selling tools. The biggest demand that came out of that was how to set up a Facebook shop. So we've got a session on that next Tuesday. Our HR specialist is going to be doing her diversity and inclusion in the workplace session the following week. And then some other stuff. So it's how to take control of your credit in a pandemic, ensuring that you can get the loans and stuff you might need, managing your cash flow, and there's another one on Shopify as well. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Keep an eye on the calendar, and we were sending out those things in our weekly email blasts and keeping you up to date with what's coming. All right, that's me, Scott. You're muted still. Okay.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you very much, Alan. Appreciate it. All right. So we are actually, before we go to CASEFORCE real quick, Alan, can you launch that that poll?
Yes.
We just really want to find out who we have on the call today. We asked this question before, but we really like to find out who. That way our attorneys know, we know, Mike knows, everybody can find out who we're talking to. And good stuff. Thanks, Alan. So before we go to CASEFORCE, we'll put up the disclaimer for CASEFORCE, but we will go through this poll first. And then maybe Alfredo and or Brett would like you to ask another poll later. Maybe they can put that in the chat. And as far as, anything that they're inquiring about the people that we have on the phone.
Sure. I can do anything given, more than a few seconds notice.
Yeah, we don't have to put their poll up right now. We can put it up as they're talking, or you got about 5-10 minutes.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So, Brad, if you have a feeling or any sort of question you'd like me to put together as a poll, please share it with me, like right now, or even maybe 10 minutes after you want the poll run. I see we've had about just under half the people have voted, so we're getting some responses, and I'll share that with us. We can keep that going while maybe open up to Brett to talk about CASEFORCE, and then open up to questions.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, we can do that. So I'll let Mike Ballstad jump in here. He's working directly with the CASEFORCE team, and yeah, I'll let him introduce. I'm not sure, Mike. Do you guys usually read the disclaimer?
Yes, we have in the past. We can go ahead and do that now. So these office hours are intended to be a resource for small businesses with fewer than 25 employees and nonprofits to learn information about various resources and legal issues relevant to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'd just like to say to this, please keep the scope of your questions to be financial and legal areas surrounding the pandemic, where limited on time and people, so other questions can be answered outside of this venue. And these are not intended to offer legal advice, and the leaders of the CASEFORCE team cannot take on the participants as their clients. This session is intended to address issues related to the pandemic, and panelists aren't able to comment on general non-pandemic related issues. All right, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks very much, Mike. All right, so we just so we have our
so here we have at the top here, we've got a resource guide that you can click on, and this has resources by county across the state that you can have access to get more of your questions answered on your time as they come up and outside of these once a week appointment or calls. So please visit the Berkeley Law School website for more information on the California Small Enterprise Task Force, CASEFORCE, and to download our frequently updated statewide small business resource guide. This is always being updated. Today's attorney, we have Alfredo Silva. He's a corporate attorney with Morrison Forrester. And Alfredo, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so good to see you. My practice is mostly about representing startup companies, and I do a fair amount of pro bono work with small businesses as well, and just sort of helping them, get incorporated and raise money and generally operate. So if you have general legal questions, I don't think I have a presentation per se, but feel free to put the questions in the chat box, and I'll try to answer them if I can.
Thank you so much, Alfredo. And to any questions that we're not able to answer live today, we're going to capture, and we'll be answering those. We have other attorneys available in our group that will be able to answer questions that maybe are real estate related or things that aren't going to be able to be covered here today. And going forward, we will be posting those answers to those questions each week to the website. So be sure to watch for updates on that.
And although Fredo said put them in the chat, please put them in the Q&A, because that's where we were able to capture them from.
Thank you. And so we've already had a few questions, and I will say that there was one earlier where someone had asked how they would determine whether to use the Easy app or not for forgiveness. And Scott did mention about being sole proprietor with no employees. There are also two other scenarios under which that could be the case. So if you look in the chat box, I did include a link to a Treasury form that does list the three scenarios that would help you decide whether or not you use that application.
All right, Mike, somebody's asking, what is CASEFORCE? So
as it states here, it is the California Small Enterprise Task Force. And actually, you've got a lot of folks that were with Berkeley Law, and we've got folks on this call that are providing a lot of resources as it would relate to giving legal guidance, general legal questions around the things that are happening through the pandemic. We have volunteer, folks such as Alfredo here that are able to devote their time and energy and knowledge to help, small business community in California get through these difficult times.
I would note that at the website here, and I'll put it in this time actually in the chat, not the Q&A. We've got resources including a very thorough guide of all the different programs that are sort of available throughout California, by county, sometimes by city, so as well as a FAQ. The resource guide itself is like 70 pages. The FAQ is a little bit shorter and focused on and obviously the frequently asked questions. And both of them are also available in Spanish in case that's your primary language that you prefer to read in.
Thanks, Alfredo. So we're bringing this to you as small business owners as a resource. So we'd love to get some of your questions around anything attorney-esque or law that you're either confused with or you have just general questions around. And again, like Mike said, if Alfredo's not able to answer them, get somebody else to answer it later for you. I'm not sure, Mike, you know, it doesn't look like there's a lot of questions in here, but what type of questions you guys have talked about in the past that have come up that maybe would be good, good knowledge for other people to hear about?
So one of them I'm asking right now is people are asking, when are they supposed to start paying back the part they owe on the PPP program? And really, it's going to be once a decision has been made on whether your loan's been forgiven or not. Payments are due. It's going to be 10 months after the end of your covered period. So that's when you're going to have determined if you've used an 8-week or a 24-week period. Another question that's been coming up is when they would apply for forgiveness. And one of the things that I've been talking to people about is, if you can, hold off on applying for that yet, because Congress still has not come back and finished whatever negotiations they're going to have on another phase of stimulus that could include some changes to forgiveness. We have heard some rumblings about some potential changes to the forgiveness that may be more beneficial to business owners. So, it might be wise, if you can, just to hold off until they've come back and decided on steps forward on that.
Please put your questions into the Q&A rather than chat. That way we're able to better collate them and you can get the answers from them. And if we can't pick up the answers to the questions, we'll also be able to get them afterwards. We can't do that if they're in the chat. So please put your questions in the Q&A. Your best chance of getting them answered, which is obviously why you're asking them.
I do have a question here for Alfredo. Jenny had a question. It says, the landlord threatens to evict a client as she is 6 months late on rent for her business warehouse event planning. What is the latest status on evictions? You're muted, Alfredo.
Unfortunately, I'm not a real estate lawyer, and this is one of the areas that I don't know quite as well. What I would say is, if you go to the link that I sent in the chat, that has the resource guide, I'm going to actually just type in the specific handbook to link to Jenny, just to your question. But there's guidance about what the moratoriums are by county and by city, and so aside from the sort of federal and statewide policies, a lot of this may depend on the local jurisdiction where you're at as to what moratoriums there are in place. So you might want to check that first and see if there are links that address that for the specific location. Otherwise, I don't know about the statewide or federal programs and what that status is. And let me see if I can find some other resources that you might be able to reach out to for a referral. I will put that in the chat as well, or the Q&A as well, actually.
All right, thank you very much. And then, hey, Joy asked, is there a step-by-step COVID protocol plan outline? There's a lot of information out there, but trying to put it all together is very difficult. Many of our clients are asking for it. So, Joy, I would, CASEFORCE has done an excellent job putting together their small business resource guide. It covers pretty much all the counties throughout the state as far as what they're offering or different ordinances and whatnot. I'd recommend that you check that out. It's on the screen here. I'm sure Alan could put it in the chat, or if it hasn't already been put in the chat. But the resource guide is something that I would definitely look into. I wouldn't say that there's technically a COVID protocol plan outline that is like a one-stop shop for all types of industries, because it kind of depends on the industry, and it also depends on when or where the map shows for different areas of the state that's going to be opening on different levels. So it's a little bit tricky, but maybe that's a call to action, Mike. Maybe you could put together a COVID outline plan, handbook, step by step, or we could talk about that. But yeah, the resource guide is a great resource for that.
Hey, Scott, I've got a question for you from Russ. And it says, which SBA program is best for a loan to buy an existing business or multiple businesses with existing revenues? Would that be the standard 7A program, say for $1 million? Is there a COVID-related program related to buying other businesses?
So it's a good question, Russ. Yes, your first question is right. And the leading question for, it would be a 7A for $1 million. Anything anything under 5 million would be a 7A loan. I wish there was COVID related loans to buy businesses, but there are not. So buying a business is looked to as expanding and growing. So there's no COVID loans for expansion and growth, just existing loans to save businesses. So it would be a traditional 7A loan, and that we'd be glad to help you with that, and get you connected with an advisor. Hey, Alan, do you have the results for the poll?
I can stop it and share.
Yeah, see what's going on. See what
the
we have.
results are. You can hopefully see them.
Yeah.
So about, again, a 30-30 mix. We've got about just under a third of folks here are part of our advisor team. Over a third of them are small business owners who aren't yet our clients, and another third essentially are existing clients. Most people come to a lot of these, although for 5 of you, it's your first, welcome. For 9 of you, this is only the first few you've been to. And we've got a few regulars. And we know those people. And most people want us to continue. So, and we'll be coming to these.
Okay. Sounds good. Is there one that Alfredo or Brett wanted to launch in the queue for a poll?
Nobody gave me any information of anything they wanted. So
all right. Well, I was curious if maybe it'd be best if we could maybe ask them, do they like this format where we don't have like very little questions, or would they prefer to give us a list of questions before these calls?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to work out how to turn that into a poll.
Just ask 2 questions. Like, would you prefer us to do it this way, where we don't have any questions, or would you prefer us to do pre-questions?
Yeah, you want to ask? You want me to ask if people want to come to the Q&A with no questions? Is that what you're asking me here for? I'm not sure I understand your objective here, but I'll.
All right, maybe just say maybe yes or no question. It would be more beneficial if we did pre-questions before the call.
Questions in advance. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Alan, this is Brett. If it's possible, I emailed you on the side a couple of practice area options. If you can fit it into the poll, that's great. If not, that's all right too. But it'd be an opportunity for folks.
Grab that from email. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So there's a question that I can go ahead and answer now. It looks like Claudia has a question about contracts for offering interpretation and translation services, and whether you want to have them checked by an attorney. I think the answer is basically yes. If you're going to be providing services like that as a consultant, you do want to have a consulting agreement or services agreement with whoever your clients are. You should have your own form that basically lays out, the fees and the timetable and some standard terms and conditions that will help limit your liability. You can, one of the resources to go to is LSC, Legal Services for Entrepreneurs. They provide pro bono legal services for small businesses with individual matters like this, and I'll try to find a link to that and help you maybe go to them for some help in finding an attorney. And they should be able to link you up with somebody. But the main idea is you're going to want the contract to sort of help limit the scope of what your potential liability is and describe what you're going to do, and LSC can help with that. So I will figure out their contact info and text that to you, or input that in the answer for you.
Thank you very much. Somebody's somebody's given us a good challenge to go through the forgiveness application page by page. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? Sounds like we should all take a nap. Maybe Mary, I think it's a good suggestion. I think that's something we can do probably later on. We're not going to go through that today, but or maybe Mary, you know, you could reach out to us and we could do that with you. We haven't had a lot of responses about that. To go page by page.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, part of the issue is that, you know, people's situations can be very different. And so we would have, you know, we've got 100 people on here. If we're going to the application page by page, there are going to be tons of questions that pop up on each one. Well, my situation is this, that, and the other. So it's much easier to go one by one. And we do have a lot of finance center folks on our team that'd be glad to go through applications with individual participants here.
Okay, I've got the poll on the legal area, so I'm going to launch that. So hopefully you guys can all see that poll. So what type of attorneys would you most like to see here? Obviously, we're all happy to see Alfredo. So beyond Alfredo, what other topics specifically would you love to see? And you can vote for as many as you need to, as many as are relevant for you.
There's a question while people are pulling the poll about using a DBA for a business and doing something else. I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but it sounds like you maybe have a DBA that you're doing one thing with, and then you might want to use it for another thing. I don't really know what the question is asking, but a DBA just is essentially, you know, an alternate name that you're using for whatever the entity is that you have, or if you don't even have an entity, oftentimes it's being used for a sole proprietor that's just they are themselves running the company and running the business as an individual and using a different name for the purposes of marketing. So there's nothing inherently that would prevent you from changing the scope of the business. And in the Valley, we call that pivoting, right? And so you can use that for anything as long as if you have an entity for whatever reason, as long as the organizational documents of the entity allow you to build that other business, and as long as you're sort of thinking about, you know, the impact on the brand and trademark. But there's not really a legal impediment to change your business from one part to another. You would just have to make sure that if there's any local, you know, permits that are required to do the other business, that you get those permits as well, and you can apply for those under the you know, using whatever the name is that you have. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Alfredo. It's a great answer.
And then I think there's another question about a lease contract, and you know, I would suggest in this case, again, I had sent some links earlier to the Legal Center, Legal Services for Entrepreneurs, and I'm going to type this in the answer to Carlos's question as well, because they will be able to, they can potentially help you identify a lawyer that can help look at this issue. The specific issue that you have is going to really be dependent, Carlos, on what your contract says. And how it's drafted as to whose responsibility is. In terms of, you know, what is basically up for code, I don't know what the baseline legal requirements are. You have to have a real estate lawyer tell you that, but it's quite possible that that the contract can provide for allocation of responsibility for who bears the cost, or who has to, you know, hire the repair folks, especially for a commercial lease. As opposed to a residential lease. So I'm going to send you these links, but it really will depend, I think, on the language of your individual contract, and LLC can hopefully get a lawyer for you to help interpret that.
Thanks, Alfredo. Thank you very much. Jenny's asking, can you update eligibility for EIDL loan? So eligibility for EIDL loan is all businesses, agriculture, non-agriculture, 501c3, C4s, C6s for nonprofits. So it's eligible for everyone to apply for the EIDL loan. The only really quick eligibility distinction is that you had to have started your business before January 31st of this year. So if you started your business in January of this year, you technically qualify for EIDL, you can apply. But if you started in February or today, then you do not qualify for EIDL. So January 31st is the cutoff for EIDL. And your next question is also, do you think this loan will be open? The loan is open, Jenny. You can apply today up until, I think, December. You can apply currently. That might change, but there is monies available today, so you could apply today, right now. Are there any low cost or other resources for filing an LLC or S Corp? I don't know.
Guess that would be one for Alfredo.
Yeah, possibly if, yeah.
That would probably be in the resource guide, I would imagine.
Right. So I think that that for creating an LLC or an S Corp, again, this is one where I keep on mentioning LLC, but the Legal Services for Entrepreneurs is really good at hooking you up with pro bono attorneys. I have actually helped form LLCs and S Corps for small businesses through referrals from LSC. And so, you know, I'll again copy the link in here. You know, if you don't want to get the pro bono assistance, a lot of people will use LegalZoom or some other you know, website that will automatically do it for you. I think that getting a pro bono service is going to be better than LegalZoom, but if for whatever reason pro bono can't cover or isn't fast enough, because sometimes they can be a little slower, then LegalZoom might be fine. The pro bono services won't cover the state filing fee, which you'll have to pay regardless. And that's going to probably be bundled into the LegalZoom fee. Just in terms of what kind of entity to form, you know, the nice thing about going on one of those websites is they will form whatever you tell them to form. The downside is you have to tell them correctly what you want. It's sort of like when I went to Hong Kong when I was younger and got a bespoke suit. It was exactly what I ordered, and it looked really bad because I had no idea what I was doing. And so I told them stuff that didn't actually make sense on my body type. So, you know, you want to make sure that you know what makes sense for your business. If there's only one form that made sense, we would only have one form. The fact that we have LLCs, S Corps, C Corps is because different businesses have different needs and there's different structures that are appropriate. So probably the most helpful thing that you can get from one of these lawyers is figuring out whether it should be an LLC or whether it should be an S Corp, and what makes the most sense for your business type. And even then they can probably help you incorporate or then go give you the sort of inputs to put into the LegalZoom after they've sort of helped you figure out what structure makes the most sense and what you want it to look like. So there you go. And then in terms of, just to continue on the average costs, you know, again, the formation filing fees, I think are depend on what entity it forms, but I think it's about like, the last time I really don't remember, but maybe the filing fees for California, I think are around $800, and there's an $800 minimum per year franchise tax. And so then the rest of that is just the extra fees for processing through LegalZoom, or if it's pro bono, then you don't have to pay the lawyer. But think about, you know, it's going to be about $1,000 or more minimum to get this thing set up. And it's going to be, you know, $800 per year minimum of franchise tax, and as well as whatever additional accounting you have. So if you've got a small business where your the prospects are that you're going to be making like, I don't know, $25,000, $30,000 a year or less, then the cost of getting it set up and the annual maintenance fee for the entity might actually eat up the you know, some of those profit margins. And so a lot of times, you know, we see really small businesses, unless you actually have an area of high risk and liability where it's helpful to have an entity for a liability shield, where, like, you know, you're operating a business in a facility that involves chemicals, or you're selling food out of venue or out of a building somewhere, right? You know, and just want to make sure that you are shielding yourself from liability, but you're going to get more than, you know, $50, $60, $100,000 of revenue per year, then it might make sense. But if you're sort of more in the consulting arrangement, or, you know, selling stuff off of a stand, you know, or then maybe an LLC or an S corp isn't worth the effort.
Thank you, Alfredo. It's a great, very detailed explanation. So I appreciate that for going the extra mile. On this one, Alfredo, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this one, but it's regarding PPP forgiveness and bringing somebody back from employment. You know, it looks like the employer wanted her back, but she didn't come back. And then now she wants to come back, or in July she wanted to come back, but business is down. So does she need to take her back by law? Or you may not know the forgiveness part. I mean, I could talk about that, but.
Well, one thing I can say is that when they had the Flexibility Act come through, there were a few scenarios that were exemptions that would allow you to exclude a particular employee from a reduction in full-time equivalents. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to include a link. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat, a link to the forgiveness question form. I would say that there are, in one of the scenarios, if someone refused to come back because of the unemployment, there was a requirement in there that you had to have documented that you made the offer in writing. You have to document their response of refusing to come back because they were refusing to take their job back. And if you've documented all of that, and I do believe that there was one more piece where you have to report that to EDD as well, then that person would be excluded from your calculation for FTE reduction.
Thank you. Fredo, did you want to say anything else in regards to that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'll have to defer to others on the actual question on forgiveness, and because it's complicated, and I think you got that questionnaire form that was referenced that might help. And in terms of, you know, the actual legal question of whether you are obligated to take her back, you know, if you have terminated her and she did not want to come back to work, then you don't have any legal obligation to take her back. Whether, you know, that might affect forgiveness differently, but you don't have an obligation to take her back. And if for whatever reason, you know, just pointing this out, you know, you did want to obtain the loan forgiveness and did want to bring someone in, you could actually hire somebody different. You could rehire somebody, you know, completely different and still get the forgiveness if you needed to do that for forgiveness. So, so that's what I can say on the legal side.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and as far as forgiveness for that question in particular, if you show that you try to get her to come back and she chose not to come back, and that's documented, then it'd be okay for forgiveness. You wouldn't get dinged for forgiveness on that. So Alan, did you get that poll back? Did you get?
I did. We've had a whole bunch of responses. Let me end the polling and share the results with everybody. So most people want to see, the biggest number is in employment and labor law. So where we normally have Cooper sitting in, that would be one of them. Next highest was commercial real estate, followed by tax, insurance and liability, general corporate, and then bankruptcy. The two bringing up the rear.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Brett, for putting that together. It's good to know what everybody's looking forward to on these calls for attorneys. So we appreciate Alfredo answering some questions that were outside of his realm, but you know, as far as finding the right information, so we appreciate that. And it's let's see here. Let's get some stragglers here. Oh, we got another one for Alfredo. Says, when Alfredo was talking about forming an S Corp or LLC, mentioning that it depends on the income you're planning to receive, he mentioned that it makes sense to form S Corp or LLC if you're getting approximately 50 to 60,000 in income. Did he mean income after deductions or gross receipts income?
I mean, I think that it depends on your business model and your liability, but I was thinking more along the lines of certainly of the gross receipts at the least, but preferably, you know, at the least gross receipts. The idea being, look, it's going to be $1,000 of maintenance fee. So if your gross receipts are $60,000, but you've got 50,000 of expenses, then, you know, adding on another 1,000 for, you know, maintenance fees leaves you just with $9,000. On the other hand, if you've got 60,000 in gross receipts and your expenses are only 10,000, then, you know, you've taken your income down from $50,000 to $49,000, right? So, you know, you do the math. Just keep in mind that it's going to be at least $1,000 a year of maintenance and you know, corporate tax, accounting, the state filing fee, you know, and the $800 for the state is the minimum. You also get taxed in California based off of your income level, whether or not you are an S Corp or an LLC. So for federal taxation purposes, you don't get taxed, it's passed through, but for state taxation purposes, you do. And as an S Corp, it's I think 1.5% of your gross income. For an LLC, don't quote me on that, just, you know, Google it. But for an LLC, it's not a percentage. It's based off of the different tiers of revenues. And so, you know, I think it's a structure that ends somewhere around the $20,000 range, but it's a tiered structure up to that. So this, you know, basically you're looking at between $820-something thousand to the state in taxes each year and formation costs, as well as your legal and accounting, you know, upkeep. So you keep that in mind when thinking about whether this makes sense for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alfredo. Oh, yeah, one more. CASEFORCE. So Jesse Chung is asking, I laid off all my employees and sent them change of employment relationship notices in March. In June, I reached out to them to inquire about their willingness to come back and availability. Does this inquiry make them my employees again? They're not on my payroll since the business is still closed.
And the answer to that is no. They're not. Just asking them about their interest, you know, unless the email was worded that if you respond yes, you'll be my employee, then just asking them about their interest does not constitute an offer. You'll want to. Especially if it was over the phone, I think that you'll want to, if you do take them on, go through the normal processes that you would go through in general for taking someone in, even if they were a former employee. I think you would want to start the whole process and make clear that, you know, it's subject to them going through whatever the process they did before, whether, you know, that's signing an offer letter or signing, you know, an like your standard form of employee agreement, and making sure that they're providing updated copies of their you know, of their driver's license or a work permit or whatever the other documentation that you normally would do. I would just sort of treat it like you're restarting a normal employment process with a brand new employee, even though they've already been there before, and make clear in your communication to them that that's sort of the conditions for them restarting as an employee.
Awesome, thanks. Mary saying, I was under the impression that the EIDL advance was actually a grant and did not have to be repaid. That is true. Is that the case? And if so, why does the PPP loan forgiveness ask the amount of the EIDL advance?
That is because when the order in which originally the loans were going to be structured, when they were first coming out, your PPP is a forgivable loan, and they're treating however much you got in PPP in grant to be a reduction in what you would need to get in PPP. So if you got 1,000 in PPP and you got a grant without them knowing, or if you got the PPP without them knowing you got the grant, then they would end up not forgiving an amount equivalent to what you got in grant. So that's why they're asking. If you tell them, if they're saying that you could get a 20,000 PPP loan and you got $10,000 in grant, then they would only give you 10,000 in PPP. They gave you the full amount, and they see that you got the grant amount, they may not forgive that difference, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks. Somebody's saying I own rentals and I own a small business. Should I file separate LLCs or S corps?
So in general, like I was mentioning earlier, you tend not to want to form an entity if you're not making a lot of money and if the liability is relatively low, because it doesn't give you that much advantage. You're not getting the liability protection compared to the cost. When you do tend to want to file and form is where there are benefits to having a separate legal entity for liability protection, and the revenues and assets are relatively high compared to the the formation and maintenance fees, so that it's economically worthwhile to do it. So it's a great question. Oftentimes when you have real estate, that is one of the areas where people do tend to put them into separate legal entities, because the real estate assets themselves are worth quite a lot of money, and there can be quite a lot of liability that attends to them if they burn down or someone gets injured on the property. And so while normally I tend to avoid recommending complicated structures with multiple entities for very simple small businesses, I would say that oftentimes it is where you have multiple rentals that you will see people having one holding company with then an individual LLC for each of the separate properties, so that if you own 5 properties and one of them ends up having a claim, that it only ends up getting satisfied from the value of that one rental property and not from the value of the other 4. So that you've got some pretty complicated structuring issues. I think that I don't think that LLC would provide advice on that pro bono, because there are significant assets there and they're trying to work with truly small businesses that don't have a lot of assets. They might be able to advise you on the small business it sounds like you have on the side. But for the rentals, you'll probably want to talk to a real estate lawyer, and they tend to have in-house groups within their firm, if they can't themselves form the LLCs to hold the rentals.
Okay, it's 11:31, folks. We appear to have reached the end of our day.
Yeah, thank you very much for CASEFORCE joining, for Alfredo and Brett joining. Let's see here. We appreciate you guys' time and everything. There's one more question that popped in last minute in regards to forgiveness. Is, as you say, that also got a grant from their city? How is the difference repayment be assessed? Interest on loan return? Do we know yet? That's a very specific question, Jeannie. I'm going to have you call us or email us, because we don't, it's very specific to what you're talking about. Please email. And then, Mary, opening a cafe and motherload was a retirement dream when I left my career as a behavioral therapist and practice. I'm not an educated business person, but I truly appreciate you all. Oh, thanks, Mary. It's very sweet.
All righty.
All right.
We'll see you all on these coming up. Remember the fire special tomorrow, these Monday, Wednesday, and all the other events that we've got coming up. Keep your eyes peeled for that. But thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Stay safe, everyone.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, CASEFORCE.